Hey everyone, welcome to Cast Iron Cookware, where you can find information to help you better collect, restore, and use cast iron cookware. Today we're going to be talking about different types of skillets and which one would be best for your particular need. And we're going to be doing that coming right up. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone that has purchased my product, Easy Beezy Cast Iron Seasoning. The purchase of this product helps keep this channel going, and I just want to say thank you again so very much. So let's get on into the video. I've had many people ask me, what is the best skillet to use to cook in? Well, that is a really broad question. Now, my personal favorite brand is Birmingham Stove and Range, but that does not mean that Birmingham Stove and Range is the best out there. A lot of people swear by the Griswold brand. They're easy to handle, and compared to a lot of other skillets, they are very light. Unlike this one right here, which I believe is an old no-notch Lodge, and it is really heavy. But this one right here is great for searing a steak in because it will hold the heat a long time because it is so thick on the bottom. So we're kind of going to go ahead and start with the smallest skillets and answer a few questions there. I have a couple of number 3s here. I have a number 3 Birmingham Stove and Range Century Series, and you can tell it's Birmingham Stove and Range by this prominent ridge, the teardrop hanger hole, also by the descriptive size lettering here that lets you know that it's Century. If it had been a Red Mountain series, it would just have a 3, maybe even a mold mark. This other little piece right here is a Griswold number 3 small block, and it is much lighter than the Birmingham Stove and Range. The Griswold weighs a little under 2 pounds. The Birmingham Stove and Range weighs about 2.5 pounds, so it is much heavier. But what I like to use these little number 3s for is mainly cooking an egg or 2 eggs. You can put 2 eggs in here and you have a nice big egg sandwich size, a personal size cornbread, or maybe cornbread for 2 if you don't eat a lot of cornbread. You can also make little pot pies, personal pot pies, or even the dump cakes that I like to make that we put a little bit of pie filling in, some cake mix on top, a little bit of butter, and you're ready to go. I got a couple of videos on those, so check those out. And of course, the collecting value. If you're a collector, some people really like the 3s because they take up less space. You can have a lot of different brands and be able to display them pretty well when they're small. Okay, one of the next sizes that's really common is number 5. I mentioned a few minutes ago about the Birmingham Stove and Range Century Series. Here is a Red Mountain version, and you see has the number and a couple of mold marks there. Of course, you have the nice little ridge and the teardrop hanger hole. This one has the larger pour spouts. It's older Red Mountain, and this is a good size for cornbread. A lot of people will make cornbread in these because you get a nice crust around them. This one weighs 3.5 pounds. On the other hand, I have a Griswold number 5 small block, and it is a little bit lighter. We were at 2 3/4 pounds. I haven't got it down now since I just got a shipping scale in here right now. But this one is a lot lighter and easier to handle. A lot of people complain about cast iron being so heavy. The Griswolds and the old Wagners are a lot lighter than the Birmingham Stove and Range and the Martins and some of the hammered skillets. They're a lot heavier than the Griswold. Griswold usually wins by the lightness. Now here's a Griswold, and it weighs right at 3 pounds, just a tad under. This one is the Iron Mountain Series Griswold, made by Griswold. It's a lot lighter, and those number 5s are really great for cornbread. That's probably the number 1 cornbread skillet in the world is a number 5. Now, If you're going to be making cornbread, I would suggest use something heavier like a Birmingham stove and range. If you want to cook something a little bit larger than maybe a personal egg sandwich or maybe even cornbread for two, then you want to probably move up to a number 7. Now I know there is a 4 in the Birmingham stove and range, and some of the other makers made 4s. And there are also a few number 6s, but those are not very common. And usually you go from 3, number 5, number 7 and 8, and then sometimes you have a 10 and a 12, and occasionally a 14. Now here is a number 7 large block. The reason why I say it's a large block in comparison to this other Griswold that has the small logo in the middle. So much larger. That is a large block. Some of the older ones even have slant letters and a heat ring. Now this is a smooth bottom, large block Griswold, and it is very light. Now it's still not feather light. It's still made out of cast iron, so it's going to have some weight. This one right here is really good for scrambled eggs. It's not too large. You have a nice surface, and for most things a number 7 works great. It's not too big. Most of the time it fits the stove well. Doesn't take up a lot of space. You can cook nearly anything in it. Now speaking of the number 7s, I have this National right here that was made by Wagnerware, and it's a number 7. It is very light. This is what the handle looks like, and it has a heat ring around the outer edge, which lets you know that it's older. After a few years, everybody started making the heat rings kind of inset, but the outer heat rings are a little older. And this one here is kind of light, 3.5 pounds for a number 7. Usually these outer heat ring pans are a little bit lighter than the ones that come along later. If you have a glass top stove, it will take a little bit longer for it to heat up because the pan itself is not sitting on the stove eye, only the outer heat ring. The same goes with the ones who have inset heat rings like this one right here. It will take a little longer for it to heat up if you're on a glass stovetop, but it will heat up. You can still use these on a glass stovetop. You just have to be a little careful not drop them on it and crack something. But usually the flat bottom pans will do much better on a glass stovetop, providing they set level. Sometimes you'll get a spinner and one that'll wobble. If it doesn't get good contact, it won't heat up as well. One thing about cast iron is you can put it in the oven handle and all. Where a lot of pans have plastic handles or even wooden handles, you can't put them in the oven without it damaging them. But cast iron is very versatile. You can cook with it over a fire, you can cook with it on a glass top, on a gas stove, electric range. You're gonna have a good piece as long as you don't overheat it too fast in one area. Now, if you're one that says cast iron is too heavy and it's just so hard to pick those pieces up, Lodge come out with this little idea called the helper handle. And it was probably one of the greatest inventions for cast iron than they ever came out with. And it is really handy. Now, it will get hot on the end just like it will on the handle, so you need some kind of pot holder to pick it up with or oven mitts to pick it up with because it does get hot. But being able to pick it up on both sides is a lot easier than trying to strain, because that is a hard load right there on your hand, especially when it is full of food. So having that helper handle is really nice and handy. Now I got this great big Wagnerware Sydney O right here. It is a number 10. It is huge, and it is kind of light considering how huge it is. It's almost 6 pounds, but it has larger, higher sides where you can put more food in there. Now when you fill it up, it's going to be heavy. Now this one also has a lid, and the lid is very heavy. The lid itself weighs 6 pounds. The entire piece together weighs a whopping 11 pounds and just a little over. So it is a heavy piece, but it is great for casseroles, frying potatoes and onions, but it is fairly light considering how huge it is. Now the lid is nothing light about it. Now you can almost go as big as you want. Now this one right here is my Red Mountain number 14 Birmingham stove and range, and it is huge. Really the best thing you can cook in this one here is pizza, or just put the thing on a open fire, and cook the entire breakfast. Eggs, bacon, and even hash browns all in the same skillet. It is huge, and it is very heavy. This one weighs 10 pounds without any food in it. It does have a little bit of a helper handle, which helps somewhat. Now, these are my favorite go-tos for homemade pizza. There are a few skillets out there that has the griller lines on there. So if you want to sear a steak and you want those nice lines, you put your steak on here and let it sit a couple minutes and then flip it to give that diamond pattern. You can really cook some pretty steaks on here, and maybe even some nice pieces of fish if you like those grill lines. These are a little tricky to clean, but Lodge has this little scraper that has the little notches, and you can really get down in there in the grooves and scrape these out pretty well. It has a helper handle that deals with the weight. This one's going to be a little heavier because the grill lines actually add weight to it. This is an option. Now I know this one is not a skillet, it is a griddle, but if you like making pancakes, eggs, things that you gotta get underneath it really easy without a real high side, these are great for omelets, eggs, grilled cheese sandwiches, things that you're gonna be flipping. And this is a Lodge old style griddle right here. And it's a number 9. You can get them in a number 8, a number 7, and I think I've got a 10 somewhere. You can find the piece that is right for you, one that's lighter than others. I would suggest Wagner, the older Wagner wire. The outer heat ring pieces are usually lighter. The Griswold is almost always pretty light. Some of the old gate mark pieces are surprisingly light. They usually have a little bit of warpage to them, but they're usually a lot lighter. But you'll be able to find something to suit your needs in cast iron. I also want to say thank you to everyone that has checked out our new channel, Prepper's Pantry, and went over there and subscribed. I appreciate your support so much, and thank you for doing that. And I just want to say thank you again for watching Cast Iron Cookware. Before you go, I just want to share something with you really quickly. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, it says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." I just want to say, share the word and be a blessing.